How many tracks, Jason? Do you know?
I think it's either 8 or 9 at this
8
point.
or 9 tracks.
Yeah.
Oh, Jason's going to be on
Jason
Drift
will be
Week.
there too.
Jason's going on Drift Week with his car. His car, I'm sure, won't.
It's a 240.
It's a 240.
There's his. If you look closely, you can see his car right there.
Yeah, the blue one.
The trash bin. What's up, Lite Brite Nation?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And welcome officially to New Jersey, or more specifically to East Coast Supercharging. Let that sink in.
Yeah. We're buying a C8 Corvette. Look at that thing.
No, we're not. Guys, so something that we didn't tell you about is several weeks ago, before we left Texas, we actually
sold the Supra, and I'm buying a C8 Corvette.
Get out. We shipped my C6 Corvette, my drift car, here to East Coast Supercharging because they've been in business for 20 years, and although they can work on just about anything GM performance related, they specialize highly in Corvettes. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done to ours specifically because Drift Week is right around the corner, and we're going to be drifting with Adam LZ, hopefully Cletus McFarland, Hoonigan,
Chelsea
and a ton of others.
Tons of people, and we can't have a car that's just gonna
fall apart.
Yeah, something like that.
We got to try to keep up, so we've got a couple things on our list that needs to be done to make our C6 ready to go.
Now again, we're here because these guys specialize in anything and everything Corvette. Now, this got here like last week, way before we did, and they already tore into it. They're just like, we're just gonna tear into this thing. And I'm kind of glad they did because we've got a leaking steering rack, we've got bad ball joints on the steering rack, we've got completely destroyed motor mounts. So these are fluid-filled engine mounts that are,
they used to be,
they used to be, but you can see they're torn and there's no fluid in them. So our engine mounts, our steering rack, oil leaks. They already pulled the front cradle, which they're making short work of this. You can see there's things leaking everywhere.
It's just like
so they're gonna like acid wash this and get it all cleaned up for us. But the Corvette's a mess.
She's beautiful, but she's a beautiful hot mess.
It was cool because we bought it cheap from our friend. We took it out drifting. We're like, it feels great. But because we're going to Drift Week and we have to make sure that it can endure basically like Hell Week or Trail to SEMA type of thing, we brought it here so these guys can actually take care of it. And as soon as they tore into it, they're like, this thing is an absolute mess.
Now, for those of you that don't know what Drift Week is, it's just like Drag Week. You have to take your drift car with a bunch of others and you have to drive it from track to track to track across the country. There's no trailering it. You have to drive it. You're going to beat the ever-living piss out of it at every opportunity.
I think right now it's over 2,000 miles, maybe 3,000 miles of road time in between, what, 7 to 10? How many tracks, Jason? Do you know?
I think it's either 8 or 9 at this
8
point.
or 9 tracks. Yeah. Oh, Jason's going to be on Drift Week.
Jason will be there too.
Jason's going on Drift Week with his car. His car, I'm sure, won't.
It's a 240.
It's a 240.
There's his. If you look closely, you can see his car right there.
Yeah, the blue one.
The trash bin?
That's definitely it.
Yeah.
All right, anyways, point is, I almost takes you. We got a lot to do to this, but there were a few things in particular that we had in mind in addition to just general maintenance and making sure everything was taken care of.
Yeah, let's actually show you some of the stuff that they make here in-house for the Corvette.
Yeah. Now, ECS actually engineers and manufactures 4 different things in-house, and those are the reasons that we're actually here. This is their spool kit, and for those of you who are used to off-roading, this is essentially your mechanical lockers. Then, we also have these bad boys here. Thank you, Jason. These are axle loops. So in the event that we do snap or break an axle, these right here are going to essentially make sure that it doesn't cause any other catastrophic damage. We also have this, which is a torque tamer. And this is gonna make sure that the torque tube doesn't overflex and end up cracking, because everything on the Corvette is made out of cast, which is cheap and inexpensive, but it's weak. And if you don't know what a torque tube is, don't worry, you're about to find out. And then of course, last but not least, but extremely important, is this neck brace looking doodad right here. So this is gonna be your trans brace or your rear brace, which is gonna keep your transmission and your differential from, again, flexing and potentially cracking, or even just ruining this seal right here. This is really, really important, especially when you're considering how many clutch kicks is gonna go on within the span of 2 weeks. All right, so first up is gonna be the Ecs Spool Kit, which again, like we said, it works just like a mechanical locker. As you can see, we've got the diff out along with the gears. I'm gonna show you exactly how these work. Okay, so Doug here's pulled everything kind of apart, and he's gonna help kind of explain what the difference is between those, which are...
These are the factory stock clutches, okay? So what these do is you go around a corner, you have a clutch material, and it allows the diff to slip, so your inner wheel will spin less than the outer wheel. In a racing scenario, or especially a drift scenario, we want to have everything locked together. And so essentially what we do is we install our spool kit, which doesn't allow any slip, and the wheels are locked side to side. Excellent for drag racing, drifting, anytime you do not want your wheels to slip side to side.
So it's actually pretty simple. I mean, it makes total sense on why that does exactly what it does.
We're removing a ½ inch of clutches, and we're installing a ½ inch of non-clutches.
Basically a mechanical locker.
Right, and clutches can eventually overheat, they can slip, they can wear out, especially if we're going to be beating on it for like 2 weeks at tracks. I don't know how good those clutches are, I mean, as far as for the abuse for heat. So that's kind of one of the downsides of the factory one, where this is going to be locked all the time with no issues.
Now also, this is a common failure on the clutch packs. This is a bevel washer, and it puts the pressure on these clutch packs. It's common that these will crack. You'll lose all your tension on it, and then you've lost all the pressure on your clutch packs. Once that happens, you don't have long. The bevel washer is still going to stay here, just so it puts pressure in here. But now that there's no slip, there's no real wear on this washer anymore, so you'll never have to worry about it breaking. We've never had one break yet. Oh. That came, you know.
Well, you haven't had Kevin. No. Torque tube time.
Torque tube time.
All right.
Okay, hold on.
So a torque tube, if you guys haven't seen a Corvette and what it has, it doesn't have a drive shaft. It has a torque tube.
Oh my good lord. This is so light.
Yeah. It has a torque tube.
So this is literally hollow. Hollow torque tube.
So you have your engine at the front, you have your transmission at the back, and this is basically a housing for one long input shaft. It looks sort of like a drive shaft, but you see it's splined and then it bolts up here. So it is one long input shaft. So we originally thought we were gonna have to rebuild this, but lucky for us, whoever had this before us already rebuilt it.
You can see like how fresh
the rubber is.
The rubber is. So this saves us probably about $1,000, honestly.
Yeah, and the rubber's all rebuilt, all the couplers are rebuilt. The bearing right here, so the bearing right here, that's rebuilt. So everything's new and on. Now, lucky for us, as we've torn everything apart, in addition to finding out that the torque tube and that input shaft has already been rebuilt, we also discovered that our Corvette is also already equipped with a monster
clutch, and not just any monster clutch, but a Monster Street twin disc clutch, which means that we are good for up to, I think, about 700 horsepower, and it's brand spanking new. Like, it was installed right before we got it.
Yeah, there's no wear on it at all.
Yeah, and you actually saw it. I showed it earlier whoosh, when I was showing the entire Corvette being torn apart in the first place. So this is a good thing.
All right, so now that we have the spool kit installed in the diff, you can put the diff, the transmission, and the torque tube all back together, and then we can go ahead and install the trans brace. So it's pretty simple, it just bolts on, but what you need to know is that the upper rods here, you want to actually tighten until they're tight, and the lower rods, which will go on once everything's installed, the lower rods you want to extend. So the bottom gets extended, the top gets tightened.
Now the reason for that is because basically as the engine torques over and you have all that power going through it, it torques this way. That's the direction that it wants to go. So you're gonna make these shorter to keep it from separating up top. And you're actually gonna push these apart to keep it from squishing together down at the bottom. So essentially this, again, everything's cast, it's cheap, but it's weak, and we wanna keep it from flexing as much as possible so that we don't end up with any cracks or any straining, at least unnecessary straining, while we abuse the ever-living crap out of it.
Okay, so this here is the torque tube Tamer plate. This is the bottom plate that's gonna sit right up here. Oh, like in here, like so.
You can see we already hooped this section on before we installed everything.
Yeah, so this is like a U-bolt. It's basically, it just goes around the torque tube itself. It's gonna go through this plate. We have to drill 2 new holes here in the body, and that's gonna sit right here like this. Now that's gonna also keep everything from moving and flexing so we don't crack anything. All this is all bracing that's absolutely needed with the amount of abuse and clutch kicks and on and off throttle. Everything back here is moving around and bouncing. Now without this, what happens is you only have these mounts back here that mount to the rear subframe, and then there's nothing all the way forward to here to the motor mounts.
So all this moves.
All this is floating and moving.
Freely.
So this is gonna
another mounting point.
Yeah, this is going to reinforce that. And then, of course, we have all the bracing back here for the transmission. Boom!
Drill some holes. Okay, so now that we've effectively got just about everything back in on the rear end, including the cradle, that means we can finally install these, which are the axle loops. And these are going to effectively contain the axle shaft inside this little space right here, so that in the event of it breaking or coming loose, it'll contain it and keep it from more or less preventing further damage. So it's gonna keep you from catastrophically destroying everything else. And you can see over here, just how it'll do that. Basically, if this were to break out here, it'll keep it in this small space so it doesn't take out everything else. It doesn't fall out on the track. It doesn't take out this gas tank right here. And again, this is about durability, making sure that it can take 2 weeks of hell, so to speak. Fun, but hell nonetheless.
Also, could you imagine sliding sideways and that outer axle breaking or hitting the ground?
Just like catching the ground, just
catches
and yeah, so that's what this is for.
Now, another neat thing that we're going to actually install, since we have everything apart, literally everything, is this oil pan baffle kit. Now, with road racing, with drifting, with any of that kind of stuff, you have oil sloshing around side to side, and the last thing that you'd want is for the oil pickup tube to not pick up any oil, right? Because then your engine starves of oil and you have a bad problem. So this is actually pretty neat. It's kind of a simple design, but you can see these little flapper doors here. So as the car shifts from one side to the other, it allows oil to pass through to where the pickup tube sits and then blocks it off on the other side so it doesn't flow back out. And then same thing with like the back.
Forward and back, so
yeah.
when you're braking or
so when you're braking, accelerating. That way we don't have any issues with all the extra power and drifting we're gonna be doing.
So when you think about it, especially with drifting, anytime you're going sideways, you have a lot of G-force that's pushing all of that oil to one side or the other. And so it actually is very easy to kind of oil starve your motor that way. So that's what this is for.
Engine or motor?
Again, doesn't matter. Again, reliability. We need to survive Drift Week. Now, last but certainly not least, we will be replacing the factory leaf springs because, yes, Corvettes have leaf springs like a truck, which we'll show you here in just a second, but we'll be replacing those with these. These are BC Racing's BR Series coilovers. Now, the only difference is we've actually upgraded these springs here to Swift springs, 20K in the front and 10K in the rear. And the reason we went that route is because we specifically asked Matt Field, who competed in Drift Week 1, and he's a Pro Formula D driver with a Corvette, and that's actually what he specifically recommended. So we took that information to heart, had these specifically made for our Corvette, and we're hoping, once again, not only will this perform great on the track and while drifting, but it should also give us a pretty solid ride on the street as well.
Hold on, let me put on my stunner shades here.
Oh my gosh.
Well, actually, okay, you know that like shades don't fit my head ever, and these actually, I think, look good on me.
They do look very good on you.
And my buddy Brian Lynn owns Duty Gear, so plug. Hey, if you guys like these glasses, he's got a whole ton. Duty Gear. Duty Gear.
Right.
That sounds kind of funny, Duty Gear.
Take 5.
Okay, so yeah, like Brittany said, Corvettes have leaf springs. This is a leaf spring.
This is the front cradle.
This is the front cradle. The rear cradle has the same exact thing. This is a, look, there's a bow in it right here. It is a leaf spring. That's what holds your car up, and then the Corvette, and then it has a shock absorber that sits right here. And then what's kind of crazy is bump stops. You guys know about bump stops. This is a bump stop. And so if you want to lower the Corvette, all you got to do is unscrew this bump stop to make it shorter, and you lower your Corvette. And then if you want it even shorter, you can get in here and cut this piece of rubber off and lower it.
What we did.
Even more.
Yeah, we did that way back whenever.
I did it in the rear.
But now we're getting rid of this completely.
So now the leaf spring's gone.
For that.
And then BC Racing coilovers go on, and hopefully we have better ride, better control, more driftability. Now, all we have left is to install these headers and this X pipe.
And then at that point, we're gonna have a drift car that's gonna be completely and totally ready to take on Drift Week here in just a couple months. But you'll have to wait till next time to see the install on these bad boys. Guys, we love you so much. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like,
you guys
subscribe.
are here, might as well just throw one of the ECS Supercharger kits on it.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Good job.
Action!
Action! All right. Okay.
Yeah. Easter egg.
Easter.
Easter egg.
Jelly, your casting couch audition is going very well. I like what you've got going on.
The puppy dog eyes.
Look at the puppy dog eyes.
Come here, Jelly. Come here.
Oh.
Come here.
Oh my goodness.
Come here.
Oh my God. She's so sweet. You're so sweet. Cross the room. I'm gonna eat it.
I'm gonna yeet you with your dirty left forearm.
My what? Oh, you're right. Shit all over me.
Okay.
Oh man.
Come on.
How? How even? I'm not even working on anything.
I know. You're leaning on something.
Ah, son of a biscuit. All right. Look at this, guys. So Kevin and Jason are actually doing 22 sets of 22 push-ups within 22 hours. That's 444 push-ups in 22 hours that they're going to try to do. Why, Kevin? To help support veterans and bring awareness to the
race to erase.
The race to erase.
The race to erase.
So for those of you that don't know, it is actually a fact that about every 22 minutes, a veteran is known to commit suicide. And so we're doing this to help bring awareness because anything and everything we can do for our vets is something that's important to us.
So it's supposed to be 22 push-ups a day for 22 days, but for some reason I was like, let's do 22 push-ups 22 times a day.
Remember, we have
that.
a very short period of time for Kevin specifically to get into better shape for King of the Hammer. So
look, just because you're skinny doesn't mean you're in good shape.
I never said that I was. I never said 22 push-ups. 22 times within 22 hours.
You're supposed to be planking with us too. What's up with that?
I mean, I will at some point.
Yeah.
Anyways, back to work.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Change the subject, change the subject.
Set number 9.
20, 21, 22. All right. Getting jiggly. My arms are getting jiggly. Jelly, I'm trying to work.
All right, you ready? Set 13.
I got 2 more.
Go. 1.
Oh, this is gonna be bad.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
You haven't done a single anything yet.
Okay, well, I didn't agree to this. This was your. This was your.
Jelly, this is not playtime.
22.